Hey there, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to tackle something that's been impossible to ignore lately, China's military activity and what it could mean for Taiwan.
Yeah, it's been all over the news.
We've got a stack of articles here from the South China Morning Post, all from October 16th, 2024, that give us a few different perspectives.
It's complicated for sure, but by looking at all these articles together, I think we can start to get a clearer picture of what's going on and why it matters.
Right, so one article I thought was really interesting. It takes us back to a pretty pivotal moment in history, 60 years ago,
Oh, wow.
when China detonated its first atomic bomb.
Yeah.
60 years, can you believe it?
It's incredible when you think about how much China's capabilities have changed, right? Like back then, they were facing huge obstacles. I mean, some people even call them a paper tiger. But
Really?
they were strategic about it, especially with that non-proliferation treaty deadline coming up.
Hmm.
And by 1967, they had secured their place as a recognized nuclear power.
That's really playing the long game. And going from, basically zero to nuclear power
Yeah.
in what, like less than a decade?
Short amount of time, yeah.
And it's not like they stopped there either. They quickly developed the capability to deliver those bombs with missiles.
Right, they weren't messing around.
It wasn't enough to just have them. They needed to be able to, to use them. Use them, exactly.
Exactly, and they wasted no time. On October 27th, 1966, just 2 years after their first successful atomic bomb test, they launched a Dongfeng 2 missile that's a medium-range ballistic missile with a live nuclear warhead.
Wow.
That's a serious escalation. They went from basic detonation to having a way to deliver it across a terrifying distance.
So they were sending a message with that, like, hey, we're here. You got to take us seriously.
Absolutely, it was a huge statement.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
didn't just send the message. They kept pushing forward, refining their nuclear capability.
Oh, yeah, they were just getting started. And then in June of the following year, 1967, they tested a thermonuclear device, a hydrogen bomb.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
next level.
Exactly. That's a whole other level of sophistication.
It's just mind-blowing how quickly they went from, like you said, paper tiger to a major nuclear power.
It really shows their commitment to developing this technology and how well they understood its impact on global politics.
Yeah, suddenly everyone has to see them in a different light, literally.
Without a doubt, possessing nuclear weapons completely changed how other countries viewed them.
And that brings us to a whole other layer of this story, this thing called the anti-secession law, something we've been seeing a lot about in the news lately.
Right, and it's a big deal. This law has been a point of contention since the moment it was passed back in 2005, and it's really important when we talk about Taiwan.
Yeah, for those of us who might need a little refresher, can you break down exactly what this law is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in a nutshell, the anti-secession law states that Taiwan is a part of China. It's their stance, mainland China's stance, and it gives them the legal basis to take action, including military force, to prevent Taiwan from declaring independence. It's really important to remember that Beijing sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, while Taiwan considers itself autonomous.
Okay, so that's the background, but why is this law making headlines now? What's changed?
Well, next year marks the 20th anniversary of the anti-secession law,
Okay.
and there are concerns that Beijing might use this as an opportunity to clarify what they mean by non-peaceful means when it comes to Taiwan.
You mean like actually spell out how they might use force against Taiwan?
Exactly, yeah. It's got everyone a little bit on edge. I mean, all options are on the table, full-on invasion, sanctions, cyber attacks. But the thing that's got everyone really worried is this idea of a blockade.
Okay, so for those of us who, I don't know, aren't exactly military strategists, what does that even mean? How would a blockade actually work?
So, imagine this. Chinese ships, and we're talking both Navy and Coast Guard, forming this tight ring around Taiwan's most important ports.
Okay.
They essentially cut the island off, right? Nothing in, nothing out.
So it's like trapping them in a bubble, but not like a fun kind of bubble.
Right, exactly. And you have to remember, Taiwan is incredibly reliant on trade for, well, pretty much everything. Things like food, fuel, you name it.
Right.
A blockade would basically choke off those crucial imports. And then on the flip side, Taiwan wouldn't be able to export the electronics and other goods that drive their economy.
So it'd be like, I don't know, a 21st century siege. Instead of cutting off the food supply, they cut off the iPhones.
It's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And it allows them to exert a huge amount of pressure, maybe even gain some control without ever having to launch a full-scale invasion.
And it sounds like China might actually be, I don't know, practicing for this, right? There was something in these articles about these pretty intense military drills they've been doing.
Oh, yeah, you're totally right. There's an article here that details these joint sword exercises that are happening right now. And they're saying there's been this huge surge in PLA, that's the People's Liberation Army, aircraft activity around Taiwan. And not just that, a record number of Coast Guard vessels are involved too.
So this is not just like a routine training exercise. This is like a big deal.
This is a major show of force. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But, and this is important, it's not just about flexing their muscles. The scale of these exercises, the specific tactics they're using, especially that close coordination between the Navy and the Coast Guard, well, it suggests they're practicing for something specific, and a blockade is top of the list.
This is, I don't know about you, but I am kind of getting freaked out. Like, this is a little too close to home.
Yeah.
It feels like things are really teetering on the edge here, you know?
Yeah, it's a tense situation, no doubt.
And it makes you think, okay, so all this focus on Taiwan, what does it mean for everybody else? What about, I mean, the U.S. is kind of caught in the middle of all of this, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? The U.S. wants to support Taiwan, but they also want to avoid starting a war with China. It's a very, very delicate balancing act.
Totally. And China's not exactly making it easy on anybody with these. I mean, they're really making their presence known.
Right, exactly.
And it really highlights just how much the balance of power is shifting. You know, it's like we're seeing it in real time.
Absolutely. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in just the military side of things, but we can't forget about the economic impact of all this either. I mean, we talked about Taiwan being vulnerable to a blockade, but that would send shockwaves through the global economy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about how reliant we are on everything.
Everything.
On Taiwan, especially like all the tech, computer chips, all that stuff.
Taiwan's basically the world's tech hub. They are the major player in the semiconductor industry.
Which is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Those tiny chips power everything. I mean, your smartphone, your car, even fighter jets. If anything disrupts the production of those, we are all going to feel it everywhere.
So what you're saying is this isn't just a regional issue, it's global.
Exactly.
And it feels like, I don't know, China's kind of forcing everybody's hand here.
Yeah, they're changing the game for sure.
It's like, what are you going to do about it?
Right. The U.S. and its allies, they have to figure out how they're going to respond. Do they increase their military presence in the region? Do they hit China with sanctions? There are no easy answers here, that's for sure.
Wow, this has been, I mean, talk about a deep dive. This is like
Right.
really eye-opening. It's a lot to process, but I think the big takeaway here is that what's happening with China and Taiwan has consequences for everyone, and things are changing fast.
Yeah. It's a rapidly evolving situation.
It's definitely something we all need to be paying attention to, like really paying attention to.
Absolutely.
Well, that being said, thank you as always for diving deep with us.
Thanks for having me.
And for everybody listening out there, keep those tough questions coming and stay informed. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.